Hi. Um, I am trying to. Haha, that's the button I want. Hi guys. So we're trying the new streaming software. So hopefully I can't see who is here. So please make sure to say something. Because yeah, this says that we are live. Are we live? I'm gonna hope so because it's Wednesday and it is 7:30. So this is when we get together. And I'm really excited to be using this new software, try to figure some stuff out, see if we can play a little bit. Hello. Okay, perfect. Okay, I want to try something, and you guys tell me if you can hear this, okay? Because we may end up playing. I'll try not to be annoying with it, I promise. Aw, thanks, Mom and Dad. Thank you so much. Um, I do actually spend some time trying to get pretty before the live. So yeah, live. It's okay to be annoying. Okay, so I got cast in another movie and I got the script Monday. Monday. And I love my character. She is like me if I had no uh social anxiety. Like if I just let myself be completely free. And there are actually, I think everybody in the chat right now, Jax might be the only one who has not seen me just absolutely unbridled and free. Um, so yeah, this character is definitely going to be that, which is kind of great. Sorry guys, my skin is so dry in this house tonight. But anyway, also, I hope you guys have your drinks. And if you guys saw my Instagram yesterday, I couldn't help myself when this reel came through because most Wednesdays, this is my glass. Because I do enjoy a little bit of whimsy. And it's plastic. And I think it was $1 at Goodwill. But it makes me feel fancy. So, yes, a lot of Wednesdays, that is the cup that we use. Anyway, tonight, oh no, I just got it. Should we look at it? We're going to look at it because you're here. And those of you that are here, whimsy. I love whimsy. And yeah, tonight we are reading Mark Twain, and it's going to be a 2-week author again because there are 4 Mark Twain stories. And the first 3 are short. So we're going to read 3 of those tonight, and then we'll read the long one next week. And I'm going to have to see, because for some reason in my brain, and Dad, you may know this. If anybody's going to know this, it's you. For some reason, I am remembering a Mark Twain story about a frog jumping contest. And I don't know if that is something that my brain just made up, because why wouldn't Mark Twain write a story about a frog jumping contest, or if it actually exists. So we may see if we can find it for next week to read with the other story. We'll see. You guys can let me know in the comments if you want me to add that for next week. Or if this thing even exists. I might have just made it up in my brain. I don't know. So yes. Again, so tonight's stories, next week's story, all Mark Twain. Thank you, babe. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County. Okay, so this thing does exist. Okay, so we will add that for next week. I will find it. I also, do you have any good riddles that would be challenging but not impossible for a 10-year-old? Send those my way as well. Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog is a story for the Fox and Skull space. Yeah. I mean, if somebody wants to, I can bring you on right now if anybody wants to sing that song. I will give up a few minutes of our live for somebody else to sing about Jeremiah. But anyway, guys, so we're going to get started. Our first story is called A Ghost Story, and it was first published in 1888. And as always, I think this is probably going to be okay. There are occasions where I am surprised by language. Anytime we go that far back in history with American authors, there is a tendency for some language that would not be politically correct today. So, as ever, if I run across anything, I will try to make sure that it is okay for YouTube today. And there we go. So if I change the wording, please don't call me out. I know it's going to be different. But yeah. Again, if you have just jumped on, please like, share, subscribe. Sharing helps the most. Subscriptions always help. But definitely sharing so we can grow the wolf pack. I love our Wednesdays. And jump in here if you are new or just got here and say hey, so we can all say hey back. And we'll get started with a ghost story. I took a large room far up Broadway in a huge old building whose upper stories had been wholly unoccupied for years until I came. The place had long been given up to dust and cobwebs, to solitude and silence. I seemed groping among the tombs and invading the privacy of the dead that first night I climbed up to my quarters. For the first time in my life, a superstitious dread came over me, and as I turned a dark angle of the stairway and an invisible cobweb swung its slazy woof in my face and clung there, I shuddered as one who had encountered a phantom. I was glad enough when I reached my room and blocked out the mold and the darkness. A cheery fire was burning in the grate, and I sat down before it with a comforting sense of relief. For 2 hours I sat there, thinking of bygone times, recalling old scenes, and summoning half-forgotten faces out of the mists of the past, listening in fancy to voices that long ago grew silent for all time, and to once familiar songs that nobody sings now. And as my reverie softened down to a sadder and sadder pathos, the shrieking of the winds outside softened to a wail. The angry beating of the rain against the panes diminished to a tranquil patter, and one by one, the noises in the street subsided, until the hurrying footsteps of the last belated straggler died away in the distance and left no sound behind. The fire had burned low. A sense of loneliness crept over me. I rose and undressed, moving on tiptoe about the room, doing stealthily what I had to do, as if I were environed by sleeping enemies whose slumbers it would be fatal to break. I covered up in bed and lay listening to the rain and wind and the faint creaking of distant shutters till they lulled me to sleep. I slept profoundly, but how long I do not know. All at once I found myself awake and filled with a shuddering expectancy. All was still. All but my own heart. I could hear it beat. Presently, the bedclothes began to slip away slowly toward the foot of the bed, as if someone were pulling them. I could not stir. I could not speak. Still, the blanket slipped deliberately away till my breast was uncovered. Then, with a great effort, I seized them and drew them over my head. I waited, listened, waited. Once more that steady pull began, and once more I lay torpid a century of dragging seconds till my breast was naked again. At last I roused my energies and snatched the covers back to their place and held them with a strong grip. I waited. By and by I felt a faint tug and took a fresh grip. The tug strengthened to a steady strain. It grew stronger and stronger. My hold parted, and for the third time the blanket slid away. I groaned. An answering groan came from the foot of the bed. Oh, beaded drops of sweat stood upon my forehead. I was more dead than alive. Presently I heard a heavy footstep in my room. The step of an elephant, it seemed to me, but it couldn't be anything human. But it was moving from me. There was relief in that. I heard it approach the door, pass out without moving bolt or lock, and wander away among the dismal corridors, straining the floors and joists till they creaked again as it passed, and then silence reigned once more. When my excitement had calmed, I said to myself, "This is a dream, simply a hideous dream." And so I lay thinking it over until I convinced myself that it was a dream. And then a comforting laugh relaxed my lips, and I was happy again. I got up and struck a light, and when I found that the locks and bolts were just as I had left them, another soothing laugh welled in my heart and rippled from my lips. I took my pipe and lit it, and was just sitting down before the fire when, down went the pipe out of my nerveless fingers. The blood forsook my cheeks, and my placid breathing was cut short with a gasp. In the ashes on the hearth, side by side with my own bare footprint, was another, so vast that in comparison mine was but an infant's. Then I had had a visitor, and the elephant tread was explained. I put out the light and returned to bed, palsied with fear. I lay a long time, peering into the darkness and listening. Then I heard a grating noise overhead, like the dragging of a heavy body across the floor, then the throwing down of the body and the shaking of my windows in response to the concussion. In distant parts of the building, I heard the muffled slamming of doors. I heard, at intervals, stealthy footsteps creeping in and out among the corridors, and up and down the stairs. Sometimes these noises approached my door, hesitated, and went away again. I heard the clanking of chains faintly in remote passages, and listened while the clanking grew nearer, while it wearily climbed the stairways, marking each move by the loose surplus of chain that fell with an accented rattle upon each succeeding step as the goblin that bore it advanced. I heard muttered sentences, half-uttered screams that seemed smothered violently, and the swish of invisible garments, the rush of invisible wings. Then I became conscious that my chamber was invaded, that I was not alone. I heard sighs and breathings about my bed, mysterious whisperings. 3 little spheres of soft phosphorescent light appeared on the ceiling directly above my head, clung and glowed there a moment, and then dropped. 2 of them upon my face and 1 upon the pillow. They spattered liquidly and felt warm. Intuition told me they had turned to gouts of blood as they fell. I needed no light to satisfy myself of that. And I saw pallid faces, dimly luminous and white uplifted hands, floating bodiless in the air, floating a moment and then disappearing. The whispering ceased, and the voices and the sounds, and a solemn stillness followed. I waited and listened. I felt that I must have light or die. I was weak with fear. I slowly raised myself toward a sitting posture, and my face came in contact with a clammy hand. All strength went from me, apparently, and I fell back like a stricken invalid. Then I heard the rustle of a garment. It seemed to pass to the door and go out. When everything was still once more, I crept out of bed, sick and feeble, and lit the gas with a hand that trembled as if it were aged with 100 years. The light brought some little cheer to my spirits. I sat down and fell into a dreamy contemplation of that great footprint in the ashes. By and by, its outlines began to waver and grow dim. I glanced up, and the broad gas flame was slowly wilting away. In the same moment, I heard that elephant tread again. I noticed its approach, nearer and nearer along the musty halls, and dimmer the light waned. The tread reached my very door and paused. The light had dwindled to a sickly blue, and all things about me lay in a spectral twilight. The door did not open, and yet I felt a faint gust of air fan my cheek, and presently was conscious of a huge, cloudy presence before me. I watched it with fascinated eyes. A pale glow stole over the thing. Gradually, its cloudy folds took shape. An arm appeared, then legs, then a body. And last, a great, sad face looked out of the vapor. Stripped of its filmy housings, naked, muscular, and comely, the majestic Cardiff giant loomed above me. Excuse me. I'm going to take a quick drink before we talk about the giant. I hope you guys are enjoying this one. All my misery vanished. For a child might know that no harm could come with that benign countenance. My cheerful spirits returned at once, and in sympathy with them, the gas flamed up brightly again. Never a lonely outcast was so glad to welcome company as I was to greet the friendly giant. I said, "Why, is it nobody but you? Do you know I have been scared to death for the last 2 or 3 hours? I am most honestly glad to see you. I wish I had a chair. Here, oh, no, don't try to sit down in that thing." But it was too late. He was in it before I could stop him, and down he went. I never saw a chair shivered so in my life. Stop, you'll ruin Too late again. There was another crash, and another chair was resolved into its original elements. Confound it! Haven't you got any judgment at all? Do you want to ruin all the furniture in this place? Here, you petrified fool! But it was no use. Before I could arrest him, he had sat down on the bed, and it was a melancholy ruin. Now, what sort of a way is that to do? First, you come lumbering about the place, bringing a legion of vagabond goblins along with you to worry me to death, and then when I overlook an indelicacy of costume, which would not be tolerated anywhere by cultivated people except in a respectable theater, and not even there if the nudity were of your sex. You repay me by wrecking all the furniture you can find to sit down on. And why will you? You damage yourself as much as you do me. You've broken off the end of your spinal column and littered up the floor with chips of your hams till the place looks like a marble yard. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You are big enough to know better. Well, I will not break any more furniture, but what am I to do? I've not had a chance to sit down for a century. And the tears came into his eyes. Poor devil, I said. I should not have been so harsh with you. And you are an orphan too, no doubt. But sit down on the floor here. Nothing else can stand your weight. Besides, we cannot be sociable with you away up there above me. I want you down where I can perch on this high counting house stool and gossip with you face to face. Love to gossip with a giant. That would be great. So he sat down on the floor and lit a pipe which I gave him, threw one of my red blankets over his shoulders, inverted my sitz bath on his head, helmet fashion, and made himself picturesque and comfortable. Then he crossed his ankles while I renewed the fire and exposed the flat, honeycombed bottoms of his prodigious feet to the grateful warmth. What is the matter with the bottom of your feet and the back of your legs that they are gouged up so? Infernal chilblains. I caught them clear up to the back of my head, roosting out there under Newell's farm. But I love the place. I love it as one loves his old home. There is no place for me like the peace. There's no peace for me like the peace I feel when I am there. We talked along for half an hour, and then I noticed that he looked tired. Spoke of it. Tired, he said. Well, I should think so. And now I will tell you all about it, since you have treated me so well. I am the spirit of the petrified man that lies across the street there in the museum. I am the ghost of the Cardiff giant. I can have no rest, no peace, till they have given that poor body burial again. Now, what was the most natural thing for me to do to make men satisfy this wish? Terrify them into it. Haunt the place where the body lay. So I haunted the museum night after night. I even got other spirits to help me. But it did no good, for nobody ever came to the museum at midnight. And it occurred to me to come over the way, and haunt this place a little. I felt that if I ever got a I felt that if I ever got a hearing, I might succeed, for I had the most efficient company that perdition could furnish. Night after night, we have shivered around through these mildewed halls, dragging chains, groaning, whispering, tramping up and down stairs, till, to tell you the truth, I am almost worn out. But when I saw a light in your room tonight, I roused my energies again and went at it with a deal of the old freshness. I am tired out. I beseech you, give me some hope. I lit off my perch in a burst of excitement and exclaimed, this transcends everything that ever did occur. Why, you poor blundering old fossil, you've had all your trouble for nothing. You've been haunting a plaster cast of yourself. The real Cardiff giant is in Albany. A fact. The original fraud was ingeniously and fraudfully duplicated and exhibited in New York as the only genuine Cardiff giant, to the unspeakable disgust of the owners of the real Colossus, at the very same time that the latter was drawing crowds at a museum in Albany. Confound it, don't you know your own remains? I never saw such an eloquent look of shame, of pitiable humiliation overspread a countenance before. The petrified man rose slowly to his feet and said, honestly, is that true? As true as I'm sitting here. He took the pipe from his mouth and laid it on the mantel. then stood irresolute a moment, unconsciously from old habit thrusting his hands where his pantaloons' pockets should have been, and meditatively dropping his chin on his breast, and finally said, "Well, I have never felt so absurd before. The petrified man has sold everybody else, and now the mean fraud has ended by selling its own ghost. My son, if there is any charity left in your heart for a poor, friendless phantom like me, don't let this get out. Think how you would feel if you had made such an ass of yourself." I heard his stately tramp die away, step by step down the stairs and out into the deserted street, and felt sorry that he was gone, poor fellow, and sorrier still that he had carried off my red blanket and my bathtub. Oh, that was a cute one. Oh, can you imagine how annoyed you'd be if you were the ghost? Completely in the wrong place. Yeah. I'm not sure who I'm going to haunt yet. Don't call me out on that, Karen. I know we've already talked about it. Yeah. So did you guys like that one? Are you guys still here? I'm sorry to ask it like that, but I can't tell. I can't tell. So, anywho's'll be. Our next one is pretty short. Oh. Okay. So this one is called, "Oh, you're still here? I figured you'd be on the road." Excellent. Everybody's still here. I love it. Okay. So this one is called "How to Tell a Story." And it was published in 1897. And Twain's little line on it says, "The humorous story and American development. Its difference from comic and witty stories." So let's see. "I do not claim that I can tell a story as it ought to be told. I only claim to know how a story ought to be told, for I have been almost daily in the company of the most expert storytellers for many years. There are several kinds of stories, but only one difficult kind, the humorous. I will talk mainly about that one. The humorous story is American. The comic story is English. The witty story is French. The humorous story depends for its effect upon the manner of the telling, the comic story and the witty story upon the matter. The humorous story may be spun out to great length and may wander around as much as it pleases and arrive nowhere in particular, but the comic and witty stories must be brief and end with a point. The humorous story bubbles gently along, the others burst. The humorous story is strictly a work of art, high and delicate art, and only an artist can tell it. But no art is necessary in telling the comic and the witty story. Anybody can do it. The art of telling a humorous story, understand, I mean by word of mouth, not print, was created in America and has remained at home. The humorous story is told gravely. The teller does his best to conceal the fact that he even dimly One more time. The teller does his best to conceal the fact that he even dimly suspects that there is anything funny about it. But the teller of the comic story tells you beforehand that it is one of the funniest things he has ever heard, then tells it with eager delight and is the first person to laugh when he gets through. And sometimes, if he has good success, he's so glad and happy that he will repeat the nub of it and glance around from face to face, collecting applause, and then repeat it again. It is a pathetic thing to see. Very often, of course, the rambling and disjointed humorous story finishes with a nub, point, snapper, or whatever you like to call it. Then the listener must be alert, for in many cases the teller will divert attention from that nub by dropping it in a carefully casual and indifferent way, with the pretense that he does not know it is a nub. Artemus Ward used that trick a great deal, and then when the belated audience presently caught the joke, he would look up with an innocent surprise, as if wondering what they had found to laugh at. Dan Setchell used it before him. Nyan Riley and others use it today. Sorry, guys. I have this little electric candle that I had behind me, but it was like burning my back. So we've moved it. But the teller of the comic story does not slur the nub. He shouts it at you every time. And when he prints it in England, France, Germany, and Italy, he italicizes it, puts some whopping exclamation points after it, and sometimes explains it in a parentheses, all of which is very depressing and makes one want to renounce joking and lead a better life. Oh, that's perfect. It landed right side up. Okay. Let me set down an instance of the comic method, using an anecdote which has been popular all over the world for 12 or 1500 years. The teller tells it this way. Okay, you ready? The wounded soldier. In the course of a certain battle, a soldier whose leg had been shot off appealed to another soldier who was hurrying by to carry him to the rear, informing him at the same time of the loss which he had sustained. Whereupon the generous son of Mars, shouldering the unfortunate, proceeded to carry out his desire. The bullets and cannonballs were flying in all directions, and presently one of the latter took the wounded man's head off, without, however, his deliverer being aware of it. In no long time he was hailed by an officer who said, "Where are you going with that carcass?" "To the rear, sir. He's lost his leg." "His leg, forsooth?" responded the astonished officer. "You mean his head, you booby?" Whereupon the soldier dispossessed himself of his burden and stood looking down upon it in great perplexity. At length he said, "It is true, sir, just as you have said." Then after a pause he added, "But he told me it was his leg." Here the narrator bursts into explosion after explosion of thunderous horse laughter, repeating that nub from time to time through his gasping and shriekings and suffocatings. It takes only a minute and a half to tell that in its comic story form, and it isn't worth the telling after all. Put into the humorous story form, it takes 10 minutes and is about the funniest thing I've ever listened to, as James Whitcomb Riley tells it. He tells it in the character of a dull-witted old farmer who has just heard it for the first time, thinks it is unspeakably funny, and is trying to repeat it to a neighbor. But he can't remember it, so he gets all mixed up and wanders helplessly round and round, putting in tedious details that don't belong in the tale and only retard it, taking them out conscientiously and putting in others that are just as useless, making minor mistakes now and then and stopping to correct them and explain how he came to make them, remembering things he forgot to put in their proper place and going back to put them in there, stopping his narrative a good while in order to try to recall the name of the soldier that was hurt, and finally remembering that the soldier's name was not mentioned, and remarkably placidly that the name is of no real importance anyway. Better, of course, if one knew it, but not essential after all. And so on, and so on, and so on. The teller is innocent and happy and pleased with himself, and has to stop every little while to hold himself in and keep from laughing outright. And does hold in. But his body quakes in a jelly-like way with interior chuckles. And at the end of 10 minutes, the audience have laughed until they are exhausted, and the tears are running down their faces. The simplicity and innocence and sincerity and unconsciousness of the old farmer are perfectly simulated. And the result is a performance which is thoroughly charming and delicious. This is art, and fine, and beautiful. And only a master can compass it, but a machine can tell the other story. To string incongruities and absurdities together in a wandering and sometimes purposeless way, and seem innocently unaware that they are absurdities, is the basis of the American art, if my position is correct. Another feature is the slurring of the point. A third is the dropping of a studied remark, apparently without knowing it, as if one were thinking aloud. The fourth and last is the pause. Artemus Ward dealt in numbers 3 and 4 a good deal. He would begin to tell with great animation something which he seemed to think was wonderful, then lose confidence, and after an apparently absent-minded pause, add an incongruous remark in a soliloquizing way. And that was the remark intended to explode the mine, and it did. For instance, he would say eagerly, excitedly, "I once knew a man in New Zealand who hadn't a tooth in his head." Here his animation would die out. A silent, reflective pause would follow. Then he would say dreamily, and as if to himself, "And yet that man could beat a drum better than any man I ever saw." You guys all know somebody like that, don't you? The pause is an exceedingly important feature in any kind of story, and frequently recurring feature too. It is a dainty thing, and delicate, and also uncertain and treacherous, for it must be exactly the right length, no more and no less, or it fails of its purpose and makes trouble. If the pause is too short, the impressive point is past, and the audience have had time to divine that a surprise is intended, and then you can't surprise them, of course. On the platform, I used to tell a Negro ghost story that had a pause in front of the snapper on the end. And that pause was the most important thing in the whole story. If I got it right, if I got it the right length precisely, I could spring the finishing ejaculation with an effect enough to make some impressible girl deliver a startled little yelp and jump out of her seat. And that is what I was after. This story was called The Golden Arm and was told in this fashion. You can practice with it yourself, and mind you look out for the pause and get it right. Okay, we'll see if I do. Once upon a time, there was a... Oh. I read what he wrote. I knew what I was getting in for. Bear with me. Oh, I don't know. I don't think I can read it. I'm sorry. I'm going to read the thing. You must wail it out very plaintively and accusingly. Then you stare steadily and impressively into the face of the farthest gone auditor, a girl preferably, and let that awe-inspiring pause begin to build itself in the deep hush. When it has reached exactly the right length, jump suddenly at that girl and yell, "You've got it!" If you've got the pause right, she'll fetch a dear little yelp and spring right out of her shoes. You must get the pause right, and you will find it the most troublesome and aggravating and uncertain thing you ever undertook. Whew. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Yeah, we could probably turn that into a pirate story because we can do pirate accents and nobody from YouTube will yell at us. But there are accents that I'm just not going to do. So, but yes, okay, so basically, it's a spooky ghost. Who's got my golden arm? Who's got my golden arm? You've got it. But everybody's done that at a sleepover. I hope everybody has had at least one ghost story sleepover. And if you have not, seriously, if you have not, I have a small green screen. We could do a ghost story sleepover. Stay up really late and do like a Friday night at like 11:30 or midnight. I would stay up late for you guys. I would totally stay up late for you guys. Okay, if that's something you want to do, let me know. I'm having a very squirrel moment right now. I apologize. But yes, a ghost story sleepover. Oh, it'd be great. But if we do it, you guys have to wear pajamas too, and you have to put pictures of yourselves in pajamas in the chat. Because I'll be in pajamas. I don't care. Okay, now now I'm just losing the plot for tonight. Because I'm thinking about doing a ghost story sleepover with you guys. We have one more. Let's. All right. I'm in. Okay. Find the next Friday the 13th this year, and we'll do a ghost story sleepover. And we'll just read stories until you guys drop off and I see nobody left, and then I will go to sleep. Oh, that would be fun. Yeah. So, our last story tonight. It is next week. Oh, I forgot. We could listen. I could do 4 lives in a row. Do you have plans? Are you going to be somewhere next Friday? No, this was the month that you didn't have a ton of stuff. Do you wanna? Maybe you can come down. Oh, maybe you can come down here and be here for the live. And we'll do spooky ghost stories, but we'll do it from the living room. Okay. Anyway, I do want to get to this last story tonight, guys. I promise. Because so the title of the story is called The 5 Boons, Boons, of Life. And that word kind of like lived in my periphery until I read Lisey's story, which is a Stephen King book. It's so good. But her husband leaves her bools, which is the word that he and his little brother used when they were kids for instead of boon. So This was first published on July 5th, but 1902. But yes, it is called The Five Boons of Life. Chapter 1. In the morning of life came a good fairy with her basket and said, "Here are gifts. Take one, leave the others. And be wary. Choose wisely. Oh, choose wisely, for only one of them is valuable." The gifts were 5: fame, love, riches, pleasure, death. The youth said eagerly, "There is no need to consider." And he chose pleasure. He went out to the world and sought out the pleasures that youth delights in. But each in its turn was short-lived and disappointing, vain and empty, and each, departing, mocked him. In the end he said, "These years I have wasted. If I could but choose again, I would choose wisely." Chapter 2. The fairy appeared and said, "4 of the gifts remain. Choose once more, and oh, remember, time is flying, and only one of them is precious." The man considered long, then chose love, and did not mark the tears that rose in the fairy's eyes. After many, many years, the man sat by a coffin in an empty home, and he communed with himself, saying, "One by one they have gone away and left me, and now she lies here, the dearest and the last. Desolation after desolation has swept over me. For each hour of happiness the treacherous traitor Love has sold me as I have paid 1,000 hours of grief. Out of my heart of hearts I curse him." Chapter 3. Choose again. It was the fairy speaking. "The years have taught you wisdom, surely it must be so. 3 gifts remain. Only one of them has any worth. Remember it and choose warily." The man reflected long, then chose fame, and the fairy, sighing, went her way. Years went by, and she came again, and stood behind the man where he sat solitary in the fading day, thinking. She knew his thought. "My name filled the world, and its praises were on every tongue, and it seemed well with me for a while. How little a while it was! Then came envy, then detraction, then calumny, then hate, then persecution, then derision, which is the beginning of the end. And last of all came pity, which is the funeral of fame. Oh, the bitterness and misery of renown, target for mud in its prime, for contempt and compassion in its decay." Chapter 4. Choose yet again. It was the fairy's voice. 2 gifts remain, and do not despair. In the beginning there was but one that was precious, and it is still here. "Wealth, which is power, how blind I was," said the man. "Now at last life will be worth the living. I will spend, squander, dazzle. These mockers and despisers will crawl in the dirt before me, and I will feed my hungry heart with their envy. I will have all luxuries, all joys, all enchantments of the spirit, all contentments of the body that man holds dear. I will buy deference, respect, esteem, worship, every pinchbeck grace of life the market of a trivial world can furnish forth. I have lost much time and chosen badly heretofore, but let that pass. I was ignorant then, and could but take for best what seemed so." 3 short years went by, and a day came when the man sat shivering in a mean garret. He was gaunt and wan and hollow-eyed and clothed in rags, and he was gnawing a dry crust and mumbling, "Curse all the world's gifts, for mockeries and gilded lies. and miscalled every one. They are not gifts, but merely lendings. Pleasure, love, fame, riches. They are but temporary disguises for lasting realities. Pain, grief, shame, poverty. Very said true. In all her store there was but one gift which was precious, only one that was not valueless. How poor and cheap and mean I know those others now to be compared with that inestimable one, that dear and sweet and kindly one, that steeps in dreamless and enduring sleep the pains that persecute the body, and the shames and griefs that eat the mind and heart. Bring it. I am weary. I would rest. Chapter 5. The fairy came, bringing again 4 of the gifts, but death was wanting. She said, I gave it to a mother's pet, a little child. It was ignorant, but trusted me, asking me to choose for it. You did not ask me to choose. Oh, miserable me, what is left for me? What not even you have deserved, the wanton insult of old age. So, sorry that wasn't a more happy story to end tonight on. But yeah, I guess what are you striving for? I don't know. I know he writes fiction, so maybe my opinion doesn't count for anything to Mr. Twain. I don't know. I'll try again for love every time. Yeah. Yep. And I don't know if this is some sort of fame. This is just, I just like reading books out loud with you guys. Yeah. So that was 3 of our stories. Oh, the story next week. I'm sorry. I always tell you guys the title, or try to. But yeah, this one's going to be a little bit longer, but I will look up our frogs. In fact, I'm going to copy and we're going to do that just so it'll open. There we go. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County. So we'll read that first next week. And then our main story is called Eve's Diary. And that will be it for Mark Twain. Yep, I think we will need to do both just to fill out our hour. Don't forget to check out the second channel. It's the KT 3.14. That is KT Pie. We're going to do some more petty Reddit because when I asked, what do we want to read? That's what was suggested, and we're going to go with it. And then check out any podcasts I want you guys to check out because I can't remember if I told you about it last week. It is called the Hallowed Hearth podcast. It is me and my friends Haley and Rachel, and we're talking witchy, spooky, ghosty, aliens, cryptids. If it is weird and wonderful and it sounds like something that I would start prattling on about around a fire, we're probably going to talk about it. So keep an eye out for that. That is the Hallowed Hearth podcast. And yeah, I'm going to get off here. I need to put away laundry. for the most part, folded. It's just the stuff that needs to go on hangers I need to actually do. But anyway, any who's'll be. Okay, so you guys, okay, so good. Good. So I'm not the only one that can see that. Okay. I'm not sure how to get rid of it, but I like it. And I'm hoping there will be some crossover of our folks. So, yes. But anyway, that is it for me tonight, guys. Again, like, share, subscribe. Share. Please. Especially afterwards, go ahead and grab the finished one, share it, draw people back to the YouTube channel. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love you. Good night.